Hello, welcome. Thank you for clicking on my video. This video is going to be a book review. I'll get into what book in a little bit, but some backstory. I told a few people that I enjoy reading, and a few of them have said, you know what, Andres, if you enjoy reading, a lot of people don't enjoy reading. Some people hate reading. I kind of just convinced myself that I like it, and it worked, and I ended up really enjoying it. I find it very relaxing. But I mainly focus on reading books about economics, politics, and finance. So that's kind of going to give you the idea of the types of books that I'll be reviewing and going through. Some books I might do the whole book, where I just review the whole book in one sitting, but I think to start I might try going chapter by chapter. All right, introducing the book that we're gonna start with. It's this book, but yeah, so the first book that we're gonna be reviewing is Mastering the Market Cycle by Howard Marks. He is one of the co-founders of Oaktree Capital. I believe they are based in California. And just to give you an idea of the caliber of Howard Marks, his book has been reviewed by Ray Dalio, by Charlie Munger, by Carl Icahn. All of these are really well-known and well-performing either fund managers or investors. Some even traders. I think Carl Icahn is also a bit of a trader. But yes, so the premise of this book is helping you understand how utilizing the market cycles can improve your investments and your portfolio allocation. But without going into too much detail, let's get into chapter 1. Okay, we are now over to our next shot. All right, let's get into the book. All right, mastering the market cycle, sorry, getting the odds on your side. Okay, so as expected, chapter 1 is mostly going to be focused around introducing the topic, introducing cycles, etc. But yeah, let's not get too much into it. So we're going to begin by looking at a statement here on page 10, and it reads as follows. It's very difficult to be consistently superior in those regards as related to macro. So in my view, trying to predict what the macro future holds is unlikely to help investors achieve superior investment performance. Very few investors are known for having outperformed through macro forecasting. So that's a pretty bold statement, because we generally think of investors like the ones who reviewed the book, Charlie Munger, Carl Icahn, Ray Dalio, to be more of the macro investor types. But here he is making the bold claim that very few people are able to outperform using a macro approach. Now, maybe Ray Dalio is one of the few, because he goes on to say that there are certain things that are knowable, or certain things that are not knowable, or at least not knowable well enough to or consistently enough to be able to profit from that, or have that lead to outperformance. So maybe smaller investors don't have the access that Ray Dalio have to use macro forecasting. So then what's left? Well, he breaks it out in these 3 points. And I'll read them to you. Trying to know more than others about what I call the knowable, the fundamentals of industries, companies, and securities. So that is studying. Being disciplined as to the appropriate price to pay for a participation in those fundamentals. So in other words, wait for the right price. Understanding the investment environment we're in and deciding how to strategically position our portfolios for it. So the first two are kind of what you think of as the Graham-Dodds approach to security analysis. You're more fundamental, trying to buy something that's undervalued by the market, and thus you're getting a good price for it, and also being patient enough to wait for when you get the right price. But then he introduces this third point, and that is understanding the environment. So this is kind of where you start beginning to get the taste for cycles. And well, mastering the market cycle is the title. So then we start to get into this idea of aggressiveness and defensiveness. And I'll read this to you. In my view, the greatest way to optimize the position of a portfolio at a given point in time is through deciding what balance it should strike between aggressive and defensiveness. And I believe the aggressiveness and defensiveness balance should be adjusted for over time in response to changes in the state of the investment environment and where a number of elements stand in their cycles. Right, so to break that down, essentially, if you feel that the market is in a cycle where you feel like you've got a high probability of profit, then you must be more aggressive. And if you feel like you're in an environment where the probability for profit is low, then you want to pivot towards a defensiveness. In other words, here he summarizes very well. When we're getting value cheap, we should be aggressive. When we're getting value expensive, we should pull back. Then he briefly talks about understanding risk. So I agree with his definition here, and that's also how I define risk. Risk is what you stand to lose. And here he says as well, so this is my statement up here, and then he says, I lean heavy towards the first definition. In my view, risk is primarily the likelihood of permanent capital loss. Okay, then the next concept that he introduces is going to be a lot more surrounding probability. So I'm going to close the book for now to explain the kind of the story that he uses to illustrate probability. So he has this idea or the story of there's this bowl, and in this bowl there is, and I'll use this color, there is black and red bowls. So he uses the story of or he uses analogy of a bowl with tiny little balls in, and we as the investor are trying to make guesses about what so if your chance of making a profit is like picking something out of this bowl, do you pick a black bowl or do you pick a red bowl? Well, without knowing anything about this bowl, like how big is it, how many bowls can it contain, how many black bowls are there, how many red bowls are there, you are really shooting in the dark. You're just at random picking a bowl, and whether that maybe that bowl, if you open it up, it has some prize in it. Right, so without knowing information about this bowl, it's very hard to play this game and win at this game of picking a bowl and winning a prize. So we need more information. So essentially he makes the claim that the person that's able to research this environment and understand more about what's going on in this bowl is inevitably going to be the investor that is going to be able to make the higher return. So you want to get information like Because once you start ascertaining information like that, then you can become a smarter investor and know when to pick a red ball and when to pick a black ball. So this kind of begins to lay the foundation for how he also, not only do we think of cycles, but we also think of probabilities within those cycles. So right, so here we can see, after I've given you that illustration, the good investor understands the tendencies or odds. Thus he knows something that others don't about the color of the balls in the jar. He has a sense for whether the chances of winning exceeds the chances of losing. Thus he is able to invest more when they are favorable and less when they aren't. All right, that's it for chapter 1. Thank you so much for watching. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got value from it. Please subscribe. Please come along as I go through every chapter. Sometimes I think I'll have to group a few chapters together because some chapters are much shorter and much less substantive. But yeah, that is chapter 1 of Mastering the Market Cycle by Howard Marks.